Okay, and back as promised, I'm actually going to play the game if you wanted to see that. Yeah, so sorry if that last one, tangent upon tangent upon tangent, got a bit exhausting. This time, actually playing the game, I'll be spurred by the nature of the thing to actually do stuff, and yeah, hopefully this is a bit more interesting. You get some variety, it's not just me milling around in circles talking about how much I hate America. We're back, this thing followed us, and Olimar reckons he knows what to do to get his boys back. Here we go, and there they all are. You can appreciate pretty decently what this game has going on when we're starting to pile up numbers. I've got 25 of them with me now. Put one to work up there. This is the game that is all about numbers. This is Shigeru Miyamoto saying, yeah, look what we can do now. This is the future. Look at how much life I can fit on your screen. This is a game about nature. And nature is alive. It is full of stuff that moves. That's the next tangent, I think. Let me just show you first off some work that these guys can do. We're trapped in this little place we landed in at the moment. But this wall doesn't look too tough. You throw these guys at it and they can figure out what to do. They headbutt it. And here's some more guys. We brought back a couple more things. And you can see we're just progressing pretty nicely up to 28. And here we go. So, what I was going to say. This game is Shigeru Miyamoto. He produced this, did not direct it. What does that mean in terms of the Japanese producing a video game? It's very hard to say they like their general titles and guys who don't... It's not exactly clear what they do, but they're clearly influential somehow. And another interesting point that can be raised with this, you'll see if we get to the credits that there is a British name very prominently near the top of this game's credits. I forget what his name is, but a British guy programmed this game, the lead programmer. His name is like in the files when people took it apart, and... Alright, you see that? He took one in his mouth, but he didn't get it in time. As a swarm, these guys are strong. We'll show you some interactions with nature in a little bit. I'm just going to clear this place up a bit. Careful. Get them! Uh-oh. There we go, got him. Bonked him flat like a cartoon. Nintendo like that kind of stuff, Japanese video games in general. The other thing I'm playing right now is God Hand, which is very interesting for a lot of reasons. It's a Shinji Mikami game, and you know, it's very interesting because it's just an indulgent cartoon that doesn't care about being cool to, you know, it's incapable of caring about anybody's standards but its own. It's extremely auteur in a very deliberate way. Mikami has talked about how deliberate he was in making it for, you know, target audience of one. Just if I have total freedom in producing something for once, it's gonna be, you know, no one's gonna tell me what it can or can't be. It's gonna be, I'm going to have guaranteed at least one successful customer rather than trying to please everyone. But sorry, that's a tangent. I just wanted to say that game does funny things, and the Japanese have a pretty good sense of humor in multimedia virtual game spaces, whatever you want to call it. The Japanese get a lot of crap for their humor. I think they're very different to us, but I think the fact that they can actually make funny stuff happen in video games, you know, as video games, they have something going on there. They're pretty clever, just they don't think like us. When has a Western video game ever made you laugh? How does it even occur to a white person to make someone laugh with a video game? They think like, oh, I'm going to write some crappy Chuck Wendig snappy dialogue for a character. Everyone's idea of a funny Western game, it's like some line in Fallout New Vegas or something. Ugh, horrible. Whereas, you know, in Japan, they can actually think like, okay, this is going to be like a world that runs on cartoon logic, and that will be the joke, or something like that. It's just far more inspired, if you ask me, considering they have a reputation for not being funny. Get 'em? But yes, so as I was saying, this is going to be tangents upon tangents upon tangents again, I'm afraid. This game was... let me go find this. We found a thinger. Yeah, how many does that take to carry? 40? We actually have 40 on us, but we'll go do some other stuff first. Yeah, British man programmed this game. I find that very interesting. In a typical kind of Western context, that guy would have directed the game as well. I think it's this kind of masochism we have towards the sensitive in our culture, this idea that, you know, how did he earn his role in the project? Did he do his work? You know, in reference to any, take your pick of any Japanese auteur, like does Hideo Kojima program? A little bit early on, but not very much. He basically taught himself as he wanted to do things nobody else wanted to do early on. Now he has slaves to do that, and yeah, that's basically how Pikmin got made. They enslaved a white guy who was better than them at, you know, complex computer stuff, just like, we have this machine, make it able to render as many little 3D entities as possible without exploding. And yeah, he did that, and it's very good work, and I figure they paid him, they all got along very well, and eventually he goes back home to England or whatever. But yeah, in America, that guy has to direct the game, or, you know, we finally did get auteurs, but in the worst sense possible. I say we, even though we're not American, because, you know, it's one gaming culture, basically. Well, no, not really, that's the other big thing I go into, that in Europe it was so different as well, but similar still. The same general neuroses is that games are a kind of tech and computer guy thing. Like, the idea is very much, what are you doing in a game place if you don't know computers and stuff, whereas no, in Pikmin they just enslaved a guy who knew computers to do this stuff, and then Shigeru Miyamoto talks about like his fascination with playing in a garden as a kid, and that becomes the kind of aesthetic axes around which the game is built rather than, you know, the tool. I mean, obviously the game is built on the engine that the Englishman built, but would it be accurate to say that the whole game revolves around his work, or his work was implemented into... Sorry, this has gotten into a tangent even for me. Let me ground this thought a little. What did I want to say here anyway? Yes, they had this Englishman programming for the GameCube to get this rendering technology under control. And he is not the director or the producer, he is just the lead programmer. We're just being told by Olimar that we have to mine the time of day. Halfway through a day, this seems like the game will move at a decent pace. I'm not going to tear through it too quickly if I'm talking. There we go. Our giant battery is inside the cartoon ship again. And as you can see, it actually fills out. Each part gets attached as it goes. It's very satisfying to watch. Pikmin do a little celebration dance, which I cut short. I'll let them have their next one. But yes, what was I saying? Where was I going? I believe that I was saying that... Yes, this game was programmed primarily by a white guy who did it for Nintendo, and what was the thought I had on that? This game is very much Shigeru Miyamoto's. It bears his imprint, his kind of fascinations, his strange lateral thinking, his art guy thinking rather than programmer thinking. I was talking recently about how much Valve upset me as a company. They're just so archetypally representative of what's wrong with the way that Americans do everything. This game developed, it's not a pure auteur project, like they had a vision and built everything towards it. No, this game came out of a kind of equally interesting process, which I would say is also distinctly Japanese. What happened is... Sorry, bear with me a moment. I keep interrupting myself. What could be in here? We found a yellow thing. Yellow seed, fantastic. And let's wait a moment. There we go. And who are you? Now there's a yellow one. And he's got cute little ears. It's a Pikmin nonetheless. He might weigh less, he might be different in a few ways. And let's go do some work, split up the gang. Just like we did with the Reds, we want to put this guy to work multiplying himself. He can do that, and here's a job for the Reds to do. Swarm this guy from behind. So yeah, what I was saying is this game grew out of an interesting patchwork kind of process where they were basically experimenting with their tools and seeing what they could do. They had a few vague ideas on what were interesting. They created these little kind of graphic pop art goblin things, these sentient plants with big, lonely looking eyes that seem to look sadly at you like they want you to tell them what to do. And yeah, it kind of, they had a few visions in their mind. They had like gloomy nature. They said an early inspiration was Tim Burton. You can see that in the concept art, and where I would say it really sticks is in the eyes and the way that the Pikmin all look at you. They feel like sad Tim Burton creatures. They have this kind of wistful quality to them. They look lost and sad and like they're going to cry, kind of, which I find very cute. The Japanese have very good taste. So I'm just focusing a tiny bit on that, and let's see what else I can do. I can pick more yellows. I'm just going to focus on that right now. I'm not going to rush anything on this day of the game. Get more of these guys out, throw them at these. I'll show you what's going on with those in a minute too, sorry. But yeah, what's interesting about how they... Sorry, interrupted again. What's really interesting about this game is how it grew out of them just sort of playing around with new tools at their disposal, and the story that I really love about the production of this game is that they said, yep, they're bombs, I noticed. And yeah, you'll see me make lots of mistakes with them. The great story about the production of this game is they had this idea of like, okay, it's going to be about, this is our game where we show off large numbers of things and we think that's cool, they look like this, and what are we going to have them do? And just as like an experiment to see, like test their ability to make them interact with things, what they did was they had them pick something up, and they're just like, okay, we're going to have the little entities pick up a bigger static object and see what that looks like, if they can do it, and like how the engine handles that and so on. And they just had these things that were Pikmin or proto-Pikmin, maybe they were the Mario models at this point, and they just had them pick something up and walk around with it, and yeah, the story is that these guys were just looking at that and they thought, that's awesome, that's going to be what the game is about. It's about picking stuff up and moving it with little guys. And yeah, just from there, they were all feeling it, everyone's contributing, and it grows from, okay, it's a tech demo about lots of little guys rendered on screen at once, to, yep, there's our limit, it's a game about 100 things, very contrived, but it's a game, so I don't mind. Yes, this was their tech demo, and the idea grew out of, okay, we can render the guys, then what? It's fascinating to watch them autonomously carry things, and, you know, it just grows and grows from there. It's going to be about nature, and so on, and then it just grows from, okay, this is a game about nature, it's about these little guys, it's about a man, it's about a tiny spaceman who is marooned on Earth or a place like Earth, and he's got to find his way home, and he needs to save himself by ordering an army of little minion men to carry stuff around for him. It's very novel and brilliant, I think, how that came about. It's a very charming story, I think, that, yeah, just such simple, basic elements. It's the game about little guys carrying things, and it turned out so fun. Maybe I can do myself one favor here. No, I won't rush it. I'm going to take my time with this game. If I were power gaming, it might not be obvious with how I'm meandering around and maybe not explaining as much as I should. This game can be optimized to an extraordinary degree. It's one of the few games with a speedrun which actually makes sense. You actually have to play the game well to get faster rather than breaking it. Yeah, that's another interesting point raised by Olimar there. The Pikmin aren't safe when we leave at night, so we need to put them away, which will happen automatically if we're leading them. Or if we're not, they will, you know, they have to either be near the things or they're gonna die. And yeah, I pull them over to grass and the Pikmin autonomously do a few different things, which is fun. One of them is they're absolutely nuts for sap, and if you take them near something where they can find it, they'll start looking. And if they drink it, they'll turn into flowers rather than leaves, and I'll show you in a moment. If they have the flower on their heads, they're much faster. So those guys are like my super Pikmin now. And yeah, we'll see if we can get any more flowers out of that. There we go, a bunch more of them are doing that. There are ways to optimize their movements so that, like, all of them drink one piece, but, you know, again, I'm trying to take it easy with this, so we're not going to optimize very hard. We got a lot of flowers anyway. Sorry, I'm talking a lot and not letting you appreciate the tone. Something that this game does really well, it looks really nice, is the passing of time. Just the way we go from morning to, like, evening like this. I think, yeah, a lot of games do passing of time, and, you know, credit to them. I think it looks at least decent when anything does this, but I think it just has a lot more weight in Pikmin because, you know, time actually means something. Again, I think Nintendo around this era, right before the GameCube, one of their late Nintendo 64 games, some of the most conceptually interesting stuff ever done with time in a video game, I think, was, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, a game I might talk about at some other time in relation to this. Nintendo have a history of, yeah, just taking any novel concept, which anyone could do but nobody does, and making it extremely interesting in a way nobody else thinks of. And yeah, they've done time in addition to water, numbers of moving things, movement of air. They've also made games which I think did more interesting stuff with time, like Majora's Mask. In addition to putting you on a time pressure thing, you can fail if too much time passes. You're actually stuck in a kind of time loop Terminator plot where you have to go back and forth, kind of playing around with things to kind of optimize events, manipulate events, do one thing, reverse it, go back and do another thing. It's really striking stuff, even if it's all, you know, on rails. They didn't model a whole thinking goddamn world like white people try to. It's a very limited and defined vision, which is why they could do it on the damn Nintendo 64, and it's still a very, very striking game. The only game that strikes me as readily comparable is Pathologic, which, I'm sorry guys, I've been meaning to play that for the longest time, I still haven't. I'm sure it'd give me lots of interesting things to say if I did, but yeah, I just get distracted. I play Pikmin again for the 5th time, it's just that interesting. But yeah, just this again, it's a very interesting game that grew out of a kind of patchwork process. Nintendo, they aren't all just... Japan isn't a land of pure auteur culture where it's all just, you know, one genius directs everything in this overman way I sometimes like to play up now. Not everyone is Hideo Kojima. Nintendo seemed to be a pretty interesting cooperative kind of structure, even if Shigeru Miyamoto is kind of the big man on top who dictates the law to the younger people. It feels very much like a project like this just kind of emerged from people playing around, and a lot of very good work got done within it, and yeah, it's something Nintendo should be very proud of. It didn't sell amazingly at first, as I said, I think because it was kind of Shigeru Miyamoto really believed in this idea, he just kept getting them made over and over again. And, you know, to his credit, he's an old guy, but he doesn't dictate control. He produces, someone else directs every time. Again, when Japanese people say producer and director, what the hell does that mean? I don't know exactly, but he seems to be sharing the load and responsibility around other guys getting experience out of the projects, which is nice to read about. And yeah, Pikmin is just a striking example of something which is technically and conceptually advanced at the same time. That is a term I would like to get into the gamer lexicon so that Mandalore can ruin it, as these people do everything. Speaking of, he's got a Halo video coming up most likely. Won't that be bleak? You know what I need to get back to on the topic of Halo? Talking about that TV show. Again, something which is conceptually interesting. It's something that, like I said, I could dissect like a gross dead animal, in the sense of, this is not an art object, it is not really a clever piece of artifice put together by an interesting person, but you can still read its creator through it, and it is fascinating on that level, and it is horrible, but this isn't that video or that piece of writing, whatever I decide to do on that. This is about Pikmin, and Pikmin, conceptually advanced, interesting production process, tech demo does not have to be a dirty word, and maybe now that I've got the essential thoughts out, I can actually play the game and talk about the game in the next video. But we'll see if that ends up happening or if I get distracted again. Sorry that I was running between tutorials and anecdotes and having to start again a few times in this one. That just happens sometimes, but that should happen less and less as we go. And I probably do have more to say, but we'll call it here for this one and see what comes to mind in the next one. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe if you care to. Is that something you're meant to do on YouTube? I don't know. If you like it, keep watching, or don't. Hope you enjoy.